We're doing beef taco style burrito bowls for this episode of the meal prep series. It is extremely delicious and highly nutritious, and I'll leave all of the details about that in the video as well as in the description. As for the recipe, we're gonna need beef mince. It's at 82% lean to 18% fat. You can use less if you wanted to. We're gonna need some corn kernels, some black beans, a cheese, or I'm using cheddar, but you can use any of your choice, spring onions or scallions, a couple of limes depending on size, half a red onion, coriander, a jalapeno, some tomatoes, and of course some basmati rice. As for the herbs and spices, we're going to need smoked paprika, chili powder, dried oregano, and ground cumin. These are absolutely fantastic spices, and as you can see, these are all from Centuries Ahead, which is a family-run business which is in Queensland, Australia. They make absolutely fantastic products. These are all really, really tasty and extremely cheap too. As you can see, I've got a whole load more in the background there, which I'm going to be using regularly on the channel. With all of that out of the way, please sit back, relax, and enjoy. We'll start this off by making a lightly charred corn salsa. I'm using canned corn to cut costs, but you can use fresh if you prefer, and if you are using canned, tip it into a sieve and drain off the excess liquid. There's also no need to rinse it either, just simply drain. Now place a pan over medium-high heat, add in the drained corn, spread it out and let it fry for about 1.5 to 2 minutes before mixing it around to allow it to gain a golden colour. Once achieved, we'll start mixing it around to get that colour all over, and this is going to create a really nice nutty and ever so slightly caramelised flavour from the sweetness, leaving us with something that looks like this, that can then be removed from the stovetop. Transfer the corn to a large plate, which will allow it to cool a lot faster rather than in a bowl, spread it out evenly, and place this in the fridge just until later on in the recipe. As for the rest of the salsa, we need 2 medium-sized tomatoes, slice these into 5 or 6 even-sized strips, stack those strips up, slice them into thin strips again, rotate 90 degrees and dice into small even-sized pieces. With the halved red onion that still has its root intact, make thin slices across, stopping just before the root, which will hold it together, rotate it 90 degrees to make a horizontal slice that helps break the formation and create a stronger flavour as the cells are more broken down, then continue to slice across and dice this into small pieces, trimming off any excess flesh from around the root, saving all of the scraps for stock. For an optional ingredient, here is 1 jalapeno that can have its stem removed, slice it in half, slice each half into thin strips, rotate 90 degrees and dice into small pieces. You can also remove the pith and seeds if you prefer, but it doesn't make much of a difference other than being a little bit spicier. 7 grams or 0.2 ounces of coriander or cilantro is also being used to add freshness to the salsa. It can be left out if you don't like it, and all it needs is a quick rough chop with no large leaves or stems. To add an acidic citrus kick, we also need 2 small limes or 1 large one. These can be sliced in half and juiced either with a citrus juicer or by hand. The choice is all yours. Now I'm using the green stems from 3 spring onions or scallions, but we may as well use the white root ends too to prevent wastage, and with them, these can be thinly sliced into rounds, and we can put these through the spiced beef mix to add a little bit of freshness. As for the stems, thinly slice these on a slight angle, and like I said, this is being used as a garnish. Of course though, if you don't want to buy a whole bunch for only 3 onions, you can leave these out, and with everything done, we have all of this. If you wanted to make this dish even healthier, you can skip out on the cheese, but if you can't resist, and trust me, this dish benefits from the cheese, run 120 grams or 4.2 ounces of cheddar, or any cheese of your choice along the largest side of a box grater. For an extra protein kick, let's crack open a can of black beans, tip these into a sieve, preferably over a sink unless you like a lot of mess, and rinse these under cold water to remove the starchy water that they come in. Of course you can soak and cook your own beans, but they will need to be soaked for 24 hours, which throws quick meal prep out of the window. A few comments in the past said that I don't wash my rice, so here you go. This is 350 grams or 12.3 ounces of basmati rice, rinsing it under cold water until it runs clear, and you can also soak this if you prefer. Let's then place a saucepan over high heat, add in the washed rice and follow it up with 700 milliliters or 700 grams of cold water, which is a 2-to-1 ratio, and lightly season with salt. Give it a quick mix to break up any clumps, bring it to a boil, reduce the heat to low, place on a lid and cook for 14 minutes undisturbed. In the meantime, place a large pan over high heat, add in 2 teaspoons or 10 milliliters of olive oil and slip in your beef mince, which is 750 grams or 1.65 pounds worth, pushing and spreading it out, which will help it brown evenly. After 1.5 minutes, give it a good mix through and fry this off for 6 to 7 minutes, not 67 minutes, just until browned all over, mixing it occasionally. Also whilst cooking, season to taste with sea salt flakes and hit it up with cracked black pepper. 10 cracks worth. Like I said in the intro, this is 82% lean and 18% fat beef mince, so a lot of the fat will render out. You do have the choice to leave it in, but it is best to drain 2/3 of it into a bowl, which you can use in other recipes, or allow it to solidify and discard in a bin. Just please don't pour it down the drain as it will clog your drain system, resulting in expensive repairs. Place the pan back on a medium-high heat, add in 1 teaspoon or 2.5 grams of ground cumin for an earthy warmth, 1 teaspoon or 1.5 grams of ground oregano for a slight minty freshness, 1 teaspoon or 2.5 grams of smoked paprika for smoky peppery notes and colour, and half a teaspoon or 1 gram of chili powder for a slight heat. Let's then give this all a really good mix through for those flavours to become friends, and cook this for 1 minute, mixing the whole time. Pour in 3/4 of a cup or 150 milliliters of beef, chicken or vegetable stock to increase the depth of flavour and to deglaze the pan, which is pulling up any stuck flavours on the bottom, and reduce whilst mixing regularly for 1.5 to 2 minutes or until reduced by 2/3. Lastly, add in the white root end spring onions or scallions if using, mixing it around regularly and cook for 30 seconds, leaving us with all of this, which can then be removed from the stovetop, and as per usual, the portion weight for the beef is 150 grams or 5.2 ounces per serving. Going back to the rice, this can then be turned off the heat, but leave the lid on for a final 4 minutes off the heat, then carefully remove the lid and fluff up the rice with a spatula or a fork. With the 2-to-1 ratio, 14 minutes over the heat and 4 minutes off the heat, this will be perfectly cooked with nothing stuck on the bottom of the saucepan. To assemble the corn salsa, place the cooled corn into a mixing bowl, scraping it all in there, then add in all of the other ingredients, which is the diced tomato and red onion, the diced jalapeno and coriander if you're using it, the freshly squeezed lime juice for freshness and acidity, sea salt flakes to taste, and cracked black pepper. 20 cracks worth. Once that's all in, give it a really good mix until evenly combined, leaving us with this beautiful lightly charred corn salsa, and a single serve for this is 120 grams or 4.2 ounces. Now as for serving up, place in the rice, which is roughly 120 grams or 4.2 ounces per serving, and add in the spiced beef next, which is 150 grams or 5.3 ounces per serving, and be sure to top it with any leftover sauce in the pan. Let's then add in the grated cheese if you're using it, which is 24 grams or 0.8 ounces per serving. Follow that up with a delicious fresh corn salsa at 120 grams or 4.2 ounces per serving too, and this also works really well hot, so don't worry about that. Lastly, add in the black beans that are 80 grams or 2.8 ounces per serving. Then this can be garnished with the green stem spring onion or scallion, and finally topped with sriracha mayo, which is completely optional. This then leaves us with this extremely filling, absolutely beautiful and delicious beef taco style burrito bowls that will last up to 5 days in the fridge and 4 months in the freezer, and the best way to reheat is simply doing so in a microwave until hot throughout. This nutrition card is then the recipe altogether, which is high in protein, carbs and calories, leaving us with the best part that makes everything worthwhile, and that is we can then dig in.
This thing is